Welcome to the Living the Dream podcast with Curveball. If you believe, you can achieve. Hello and welcome to another episode of Living the Dream with Curveball. I'm your host, Curveball, and today I'm joined by a special guest. He is an app developer. He is the founder of CustomMobile. So we're going to be talking about how that benefits podcasters and what you can get using his service for as little as $6 a month through Patreon. John Lee. John, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Curtis.
Why don't you start off by giving a little background about yourself, telling the audience kind of who you are?
Well, I live in Pittsburgh. I'm originally from New York City. We moved to Pittsburgh 2 years ago for a new job, but I think we'll be settling in Pittsburgh going forward. It's a beautiful city, and we fall in love with it. I do have a day job. I work for a software company out in Virginia, but my side project and side business is custom building apps for content creators. And that's how we connected, you and I, Curtis. Our website is CustomMobile.App. And I believe we are the only service that makes it affordable and accessible for anyone, whether you're just an independent podcaster to a podcast network or a more professional operation, to build your own custom mobile app, your own branded app, and engage your customers directly. So yeah, I'd love to talk more about it and what the benefits could be for podcasters.
Absolutely. Kind of tell us what made you get started into creating these custom apps for content developers.
That's a long story, actually. This is just the latest iteration of the business. So I've wanted to have my own business for a long time. And I started a couple of years ago, I want to say 3 or 4 years ago, on a completely different track. I wanted to build my own app, my own podcast app that listeners could download, listen to all their normal podcasts, but also engage on social media. So it was going to be a type of social podcast app. That was the initial idea. I spent a lot of money, hired an agency to help me build that. But it took a long time to build. And over that time, I saw many social podcast apps come and go. And it became clear to me that this was probably not going to be a good idea for a business to launch a product like this that I've seen fail again and again over the years. So long story short, I think during COVID, actually, my mind started moving and the idea for the business started to change. And so we landed on the idea of building custom apps for podcasters, I think around the middle of last year, and shifted the business toward that direction. I did see a couple of other companies doing it. They were mainly the biggest podcast hosts. I think Libsyn has a service like this. Maybe one or two other of the big podcast hosting companies. And there were other companies building custom apps, but they were very expensive. And I didn't see how a regular podcaster could afford to have their own app. So we had already built an app. So it was just a matter of finding a way to white label that app and make it easier for others to use it as a template and build a branded app on it. So that was how it began. Since we had that technology already built, how to operationalize that and make it more affordable for everyone. And so, like I said, I think we are the only agency out there that makes it affordable for anyone to make a mobile app for their podcast or even their small business at these prices. Basically, the same prices you would pay for a website. Now you can also have a mobile app. And I think maybe because it's so new and it hasn't really been an option on the table since now, I think it's taken some time, I think, for podcasters to understand what's in it for them. Why should they have their own mobile app? Why isn't it just fine to have their content distributed on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and on these other third-party platforms? Why it makes business sense to have their own mobile app on top of their website. So I'd love to go into that and try to help spread the word.
Yeah, let's go into that. Why does it make good business sense for a podcaster to have an app versus just letting it get out through all the major podcast platforms?
I think the primary reason would be the podcaster has no control over those relationships when their content is being distributed through third parties. The content is getting out there to a wide audience, which is great. And every podcaster should be publishing wherever they can through Apple Podcasts or Spotify, everywhere they can. It should be on their website, on anyone's website through that public RSS feed for sure. But there's no way for the podcaster to engage that listener if it's going out through these other third-party platforms. If it's going out through your website, and if it's going out through your mobile app, you own that relationship. So that listener can be listening to an episode. They can see other content, say on your website. They land, they listen to an episode. They'll see maybe you have a blog. Maybe you're selling merchandise. They can convert from a listener to a customer when they're on your property, your website. And the mobile app, I think, acts in the same way. It's your own property. It's your front door to your shop if you're selling merchandise. It's your front door to your studio on the phones of your listeners. So they're carrying around the front door to your studio in their pocket. So when they open up the app, they're consuming your content, but seeing all the other things you're offering as well, whether it's written content, video content, it can all be in this under the same roof. And especially importantly, I think there's the ability there for them to engage with you, the host, and ultimately convert to becoming a supporter or a customer even. They would be able to purchase merchandise or contact you through an email form. They can take a call to action. They can take that extra step after listening to the content to then engaging the host and connecting with the show. That's something that isn't possible through a third-party app like Apple Podcasts. So if you're a business, and I think every podcaster is ultimately a business, they want to make their show financially sustainable. You definitely want a website. That's just table stakes. You want your own home on the web where you're driving listeners to, where you can further engage them and then convert them to customers. But now you can also afford to have a mobile app. So you can be on their phones, in their pockets, put your front door to your studio right in their pockets. So it's another channel that acts like a net and allows you to convert listeners into actual financial supporters or even customers.
So explain to people your pricing levels and what they get with each level of pricing, because you got like 3 pricing levels.
Right. Yeah. So we wanted it to be accessible. So we do have a hobby level, which is $7 a month. And so that's accessible to everyone. I think if you have a podcast project, that's a level that you can onboard onto, and at that level we pull in all the content that you offer, not just your podcast, but if you have a YouTube channel as well, and we have a blog, we can pull in all your content under the same roof, your social media accounts. The next level is the business tier, and that includes more monetization features. So if you wanted to sell products, you could do that in the app. You could connect it to a Shopify site. If you already have a Shopify site, you can connect it to the app so you can list your products and your listeners can go through the entire checkout flow right through the app. So that business tier is more for the business-minded podcaster who wants to be selling products or services through the app. And then the final tier is the network tier. That's if you're a podcast network and you have more than one podcast under your umbrella. You get all the features of the business tier plus the ability to pull in as many RSS feeds as you like, so you can present the entire network of shows in one app and give that listener access to all of your shows in one place.
So let's talk about the process that the podcaster would go through if they wanted to get your service. What do they do? Where do they go? How does the process work? And how much control over the process does the podcaster have?
Yeah, so Curtis, you just went through this process, so maybe you can help fill in the gaps if I miss any. The first place to go is to our website, just CustomMobile.App. You could read through all of our information there. And then when you click through that website, it'll take you to our Patreon site. So we're using Patreon as our backend customer relationship manager, if you will. And our tiers are there. You would support us as a patron at one of those 3 tiers. Once you become a supporter, then we begin to onboard you. I'll send you a message through Patreon with the details we need to start building a draft app. Once your app is drafted, depending on what tier you're on, if you're on the business tier or up, you'll get a login to the admin dashboard where you can log in, you can see the app, you can demo it right there, and you can manage your content yourself. So this admin dashboard allows users to update any content in the app and publish on demand. So that's a very powerful tool for a content publisher to be able to do. Once the app is drafted and the client is happy with it, then we begin the process of submitting to the app stores. Google Play will allow us to publish your app under our account if you don't have one yourself, or you can make your own account with Google. It's only $25, one-time registration fee, and then we can publish under your account in Google as well. Apple's a little more strict. Apple will not let us publish under our own account, so clients have to make their own Apple developer account with Apple, and Apple will charge their customers $99. So there's a little bit of a hurdle to get published to Apple, but we've seen that investment is definitely worth the investment.
$99 plus tax, so about $110. And not only that, you can't do it as an individual. You have to add it as an organization account, just so listeners know.
Yes, that's a great point. Thank you for reminding me, Curtis. Yes, you would want to register as an organization, and you'll need to be a registered business to do that. Can I throw it back to you, Curtis? How was your experience? I mean, you've just gone through this. I think your app published yesterday. So I'd love to hear your feedback on how the experience has been for you.
Well, I was going to ask you a couple of questions. I still need to go in and change my individual account to organization. But the question I was going to have is, let's say that a person does not have an Android device. Can they still see the app stats and the downloads and still do anything with it? Or do you have to have an Android device to be able to do anything or see anything with your app?
So at the business tier, you do get a login to the admin dashboard. And so you could log in and see the app analytics. And also there's an emulator inside there, so you can preview the look and feel of the app in there. To get a real sense of what the Android app looks like, though, it would be best to find a friend with an Android phone and be able to download it and play with it there. Because the emulator in the admin tool is not perfectly realistic.
Do you know if the Android app, because I don't have an Android device, I guess I will have to upgrade to the business tier. So the first question is, do you know about accessibility? Is it going to be accessible for all, or are you sure about that?
I have to get back to you on that, Curtis. I'll ask about accessibility, but my assumption right now is it should be. I'm sure the vendor that we use has considered that, but I will get back to you on that.
Okay, so the next question I have is, what if somebody starts out as the hobby, the $6 a month or $7 a month, and then they decide they want to upgrade to another tier? How do they do that? Explain that.
That should just be in Patreon. You can simply go in and update your subscription level in Patreon.
We can do that directly through your website?
You can go to Patreon directly or through the website. It doesn't matter. You'd already be, I guess, a patron through Patreon. So you can just go into your Patreon account and update your support tier to one of the higher levels.
Well, give us your website again and give us your social media links so people can contact you and get their own mobile app.
Sure. So you can find us at CustomMobile.App. And then through there, you'll find our Patreon page as well.
Okay. And do you have anything else? Any final thoughts before we close it out?
Well, I just want to thank you, Curtis, for giving me the opportunity to talk about the business for the first time. This is my first interview, and I want to thank you again for the opportunity. If anyone has any questions about our service, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Through the website, you can find a contact form there, or you can email me directly just at hello@CustomMobile.App, and I'll read that email and get back to you. Thank you.
And just to let you know, I think it would be a good idea for you to get on the podcast guest directories like Podded and podcastguest.com. There are others. And I think it would also be good for you to join up with these podcasting groups on Facebook. I'm a member of several of them. That way people can know, because I know when I put this episode out, I will be putting it out through those groups, because I think this is a great opportunity, like you say, for people to get an app that's affordable and that they can monetize and do other stuff with. So thank you so much for joining me today, John.
Thank you so much, Curtis.
And listeners, please be sure to follow, rate, review, share to all your content creator friends after listening. For more information on the Living the Dream podcast, visit www.djcurveball.com. Until next time, stay focused on living the dream.